All right, welcome everybody to this Web of Security live webinar. My name is Chad Russell, and today I'm going to be covering what's in the agenda here, and I'm going to open this forum up to question and answer. And this is really a chance to interact with you guys about the things that you're trying to do with your cybersecurity career, things that you want to learn about in cybersecurity. I'll share with you some of the things that I've put together on the webofsecurity.com site. I have a lot of great free content out there that I'd love for you to take advantage of and check out. And so today we're going to talk through four key items here. And so the first is we're going to talk through cybersecurity career paths. So I'm going to share with you some of the different career paths and a little background on me. So I've been in the cybersecurity industry for about 15 years or so. Um, right now, I'm a cloud security architect with Oracle, so I'm actually on my lunch break doing this webinar with you guys. And the web security site is something that I've put together over the past 2 years. And I've been adding a lot of training content around different certifications like CISSP, like some other certifications like Security Plus. And so um, make sure that if you can't see the video, make sure you're clicking play on the webinar and you should be able to see what's on the screen. Can you guys verify that you're seeing the screen that says during this free webinar you will learn? Someone can add into the chat. I just want to verify the video is working properly. All right, so, okay, video's working well, great. Yeah, you see a static page, that's exactly right. So back to the agenda. Cybersecurity certifications, we're gonna cover Certified Ethical Hacker, we're gonna talk about CISSP, we're gonna talk about Security Plus, and which, if any of those, make the most sense for you based on where you are in your career path. Some of you guys might be security engineers, some of you might be newbies, maybe you're a help desk IT, and you wanna get into the security space. Well, the good news is that there's a ton of space in this field, and there's a huge shortage of folks. And so I have been a hiring manager for cybersecurity and engineering teams over the years myself. So I know exactly what I'm looking for in folks that are working on my team or working with me. As I mentioned, I'm a cloud security architect. I've been with Oracle and Microsoft and some other uh, big companies such as SAP. Now, uh, I also want to talk through certification preparation with you guys. So I'm going to cover a few tips and tricks for those of you that are getting ready to embark upon your certification journey. And then, we're going to keep this live throughout. I'll try to answer questions as we're going along, and I'm certainly going to at least dedicate half of our time to live Q&A because I'm really interested in where you guys are at and what you guys are looking to accomplish with your own careers and your own interests. Some of you might be looking at this just from a perspective of, hey, I want to learn about hacking. I want to learn how this works. And so these are things that we can talk about. So let me transition here. I'm going to turn my phone off because it's making too many noises in the background. So hello, everybody. So let's first talk about career paths. And so I have created on the webofsecurity.com site and actually I've created a self-assessment. So I'm going to walk through this with you here in a minute, but I think it's a neat little self-assessment because there are different career paths in cybersecurity, whether you're a security operations center analyst, like a SOC analyst, whether you're a security engineer, an architect, if you're a chief information security officer, they all uh, require different personalities, honestly. And it really does take uh, many different types of personalities and interests and expertise to make up, uh, a staff of security professionals. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to switch over to this self-assessment, and I want to walk through it with you because this is a free assessment that you can go through on the website, and you can get a feel maybe for what makes sense for you if you're unsure about where you want to go. with your cybersecurity career plans. So let's take a look at that. I'm going to screen share now. To the Web of Security base site. And you don't have to do this now, but after the webinar, I highly recommend you take a look at this. So this is the webofsecurity.com site that we're about to look at here. And well, I need to log out. I'm logged in as administrator. So I'm going to get logged out here, and you can create your own free account. And with the free account, by the way, that will allow you to partake of a lot of this free content that I have available on the site. So let me just go through this a little bit real quickly with you. So I have an introduction series, which it's all free. This initially was paid content, but I'm really trying to open up as much of this as I can to be free content for you guys. So I've got a free introduction to CEH, or Certified Ethical Hacker certification. I've got Intro to CISSP certification bootcamp and Security Plus. And we'll talk more in a little bit about which of those might make sense for you or might not. So let's go to the self-assessment. So I have a self-assessment here. If you go to the top of the page and you navigate to self-assessment, actually it is a different link. So let me go back here. Cloud Labs, Web of Security. There we go. Cyber Careers is where it is. So if you go to the Cyber Careers button at the top of the page, you can see that I've created a self-assessment here. And the way I've structured this is the type of personality characteristics that I'm looking for in this little personality test are kind of mapped to these. So let's walk through these together. Okay, so first question, are you a people person, or would you rather munch on Doritos and engage with people digitally from a bunker? Okay, so let's just say that I'm not a people person. I'm kind of a bunker guy. So next, are you more interested in how the watch is made, or do you care what time it is? Well, maybe you want to know how the watch is made. That's great. Do you want to tear things apart or build things from scratch? So we'll choose build things from scratch. And of course, you guys will take this and come up with your own set of recommendations. Do you want to know why something happened, or how? This should read how. I need to change that. So we'll just say how. Do you want to work under real-time pressure, or you want to be on a project with no deadlines? Bring on the pressure. And then finally, would you rather build a project plan or follow one? We'll just say follow. So we'll enter that. Let's see what the results come up with here. So interesting, this says Blue Team Engineer. So you can see at the bottom of the site here that I have a listing of different career paths, okay? And so for those of you that might be a little newer to the cybersecurity space, some of these may or may not be familiar to you. Some of them are self-explanatory, others aren't. So a CISO is a Chief Information Security Officer. Now, that would be someone that manages the entire security operation. So generally, these are people that are good communicators. They deal more on the side of policy, and they're a little political in nature. Now you take a look at someone like a security analyst. So I'm going to click on that. Description of that particular field, right? So here I mentioned that if you're looking to get into security, an analyst position, then maybe I'll even go in and make a recommendation. Well, Security Plus certification might be best for you because that's more of a starting point. And I'll talk about that a little more on the journey and the path. So let's say that you're looking at CISO, so Chief Information Security Officer position. Well, here I'm actually already logged in as a user, but you can see that CISSP is probably more relevant for that type of path. So let's talk about red team and blue team engineers. So these are terms that are a little less common. Some of you that are in the security field will know this, others might not. So red teamers are folks that will try to hack your corporate network. Now, sometimes, companies I've been at, like Oracle, Microsoft, et cetera, will hire external organizations to run pen tests or penetration tests against your environment. Bigger companies like that, though, usually have in-house teams. So we have in-house red teams. They have those at Microsoft. We have them here at Oracle, where I am now. And so uh, the blue teams are just the opposite. This is the group of folks that are responsible for detecting the attacks, whether they be from the red team folks, whether they be from external pen testers, external hackers, state-sponsored hackers. The blue teamers are the ones that are responsible for responding to the event. So identifying that a hack took place, maybe you'll look at your intrusion detection logs, there'll be an alert, and you identify, okay, we're under attack, we need to address this, and we need to follow an incident response plan. So a SOC manager, SOC in security terminology is Security Operations Center. So it's essentially the central nervous system for security events and security information. And so a security operations center, you've probably seen these on TV. There's a lot of computers, there's huge screens at the front of the room, and there's a lot of people that are looking at different dashboards, right? So this is information that's collected from security information and event management or SIEM software packages, looking at audit logs, firewall logs. And then once an attack's identified, the SOC team may hand it off to the blue team, right, which is the incident response team. So let's talk through some of these additional uh, categories. And this isn't all of them, by the way, but I think these are some of the larger categories that are available. The next one is a cyber forensics investigator. So, think, CSI, right? These are folks that are responsible for analyzing information and data after the fact. So the attack's already taken place. So in my previous example, let's say that the SOC manager and the security analysts that are working in the security operations center get alerted that there's an attack. The blue team's engaged. They do the incident response. They contain and eradicate the threat. Well, after all that's done, you're going to want to do what we call a postmortem, which is you'll go in and you need to identify and document what exactly happened, especially if there were certain machines that were compromised or certain systems that might require action from a legal a corporate standpoint. So you're going to go in and do things like collect information. You're going to collect data from RAM. You're going to dump data out of memory. You're going to isolate that information. And there's a whole series uh, dedicated of technologies and certifications dedicated to forensics. And so here, if you choose forensics and let's say your personality quiz came up saying, hey, digital forensics is for you, then this is where getting like maybe a forensics certification or taking a forensics course might be helpful. So I do offer a forensics course on Web of Security. So here I kind of walk through some of what that entails in the forensics course. You do things like recover deleted files. You'll go back into the Windows registry. You'll do things like sandboxing and malware analysis. And there's a whole host of activities that are specific to cyber forensics professionals. So that's another career path. Endpoint security analysts are folks that generally are going to be working with um, uh, information that is, maybe on a mobile device or a mobile phone. Okay, so if let's say, someone's personal device, their Mac or whatever gets hacked, then you might be involved with making sure that they get restored back to working order. A network security architect is someone that will design security around maybe the cloud or a corporate cloud network. And then a cloud security engineer would do things like actually implement and deploy certain technologies like maybe web application firewalls, intrusion prevention systems, and a whole host of other security technologies. So let me just pause there for a second. So I kind of went over some of the career stuff. You guys have any questions on the career piece? Any stuff that you might be interested in regarding these different careers, or any questions you might have? So I'm just looking to the chat here to see if you guys have any feedback or questions about cybersecurity careers. So I'm just going to pause there for a minute. There's a little bit of delay between the live stream and the chat, so about 5 seconds or so. All right, so I'm not seeing any questions quite yet, so let's go ahead and move along. So we've talked about different career paths. Next, I'm going to talk about the certifications a little bit with you. So let's talk about Security Plus certification first. So Security Plus certification is more or less the kind of the baseline certification. So if you're just looking to get into cybersecurity, and let's say you have maybe at least a year or two of some sort of computer experience, maybe on par with A plus, Network plus, or help desk support, then Security Plus is a great place to start. What Security Plus does is it establishes kind of a common vernacular, meaning that you understand the language of security, you understand what defense in depth looks like. And so Security Plus has different domains that are covered, such as identity and access management, and um, areas such as cryptography. And so identity access management, cryptography. You also have security access controls. Okay, so security access controls means, for instance, implementing file sharing permissions and how to set up maybe Active Directory domains to secure your environment. Other areas that are covered in the Security Plus exam include security operations. Okay, so this can include things such as incident response. It can include uh, things that are specific to uh, cryptography, and also disaster recovery. So disaster recovery is another area that's covered on the Security Plus exam. And here's my take, and I've taken a lot of these exams over the years. I've gotten a lot of these certifications, CISSP, MCSE, a ton of these things, CCNP for Cisco over the years. And, kind of the knock on some of these, honestly, is that, they're tests, they're pieces of paper. They don't necessarily illustrate your real world capability, but they do have worth. You have to have these as a starting point, especially if you don't have a good amount of experience in a certain field. The certifications are a great way to get your foot in the door and show that you have fundamental knowledge about a given topic. And so you can get in, let's say, if you have 2 years of IT experience and you get, let's say, the Security Plus certification. Well, that shows to a potential employer that not only do you have IT experience, but you have knowledge about security. Yeah, you may not have security, as a dedicated career or job title on your resume, but I guarantee you, if you look back at your resume and you think about what you've done something specific to security. Is actually a great certification. It does cover a lot of detailed security practices. You get deep into technology and malware, and you learn about how this stuff works. Now, so let's go ahead and move from Security Plus, and let's say that you're already in the security industry. You're kind of wanting to up your game. Maybe you want to move to a security engineering type position. Maybe you want to move into a architecture position. The CISSP certification is a great certification that you can pursue. So I'll go back to cyber careers here, and we'll look at CISSP. So um, let's go ahead and navigate down to these various titles. So I'll choose CISO because I know that this focuses in on the CISSP. So when I bring this up, I actually have the outline of the full CISSP bootcamp that I have on the Security Plus site. And this actually breaks out the various domains that are covered, or excuse me, within CISSP, not Security Plus. So you can see that CISSP covers security, covers hacking wireless networks. It covers security principles, asset security, network security, security ops, encryption. In some sense, these are some of the same topics that are covered in Security Plus, but um, it's a little bit more of a rigorous exam. It's a 4-hour exam, at least that's how much time you're given. And honestly, as a hiring manager, the way I would look at the CISSP is if someone just has the CISSP and they don't have experience, I'm going to look at that and say, okay, they're ready to put their foot in the door. I would probably give it about the same credence as I would Security Plus without experience. Now, but if you have a couple of years of experience under your belt and you have the CISSP, in my mind, that's a true stepping stone. So if you're looking at these certifications and kind of asking yourself, well, where do I start? What's a logical path? I would say that if you're not already in the security space, take a look at the Security Plus certification. If you're in the security space already in some capacity, then look at the CISSP. You'll see that online, these job descriptions, a lot of them are asking for CISSP certification. And then finally, we're going to move on to kind of the last one, and in my mind, a bit more advanced, which is the Certified Ethical Hacker certification. So let me go back to cyber careers. And so Certified Ethical Hacker is really getting into really the pen testing aspect of security. So if you're fascinated by hacking and you want to actually go in and do the work and attack systems and do this, of course, in a sanctioned way, then that's what we call ethical hacking, right? And so this is where you might run tools like Metasploit. There's a whole host of open source tools you'll you'll use that technology to scan and hack into systems. So let me go ahead and choose Red Team Engineer here. So if your profile came up and indicated that Red Team Engineer is great for you, then this is what comes up. Now, granted, you can choose whatever you want. That assessment is just something that's helpful, I think, but it shouldn't be the be all end all, obviously, of your decision. Now, Certified Ethical Hacker, from a coverage standpoint, covers a lot of ground, and you'll find that CEH is much more technical. I mean, uh, 10x more technical than Security Plus or CEH, largely theory based. The CEH exam is very uh, experience based. We're making assumptions that you've done things like hacked wireless networks using tools like Aircrack, that you've done Wi-Fi protected setup hacking with tools like Reaver, that you know how to use something like Wi-Fi Pineapple, which allows you to conduct a man-in-the-middle attack over public networks, right? So these are very specific things. Now, if you have CEH certification, then this is likely something that you're only going to get if you have some experience in the field. And so to me, it's a stepping stone. It's not a stepping stone. It's a bit more of an end goal. It's at the higher end of your career. You're definitely not going to start here. But maybe if you have 5 or 6 years or more of experience in networking or network security or application security, and you want to prove out those capabilities this could be the next step for you. So as you can see, the whole security space, it's really a set of stepping stones. And, the certifications that I went over with you here are definitely not the only certifications that are available to you, but I think there's some of the more core certifications that people are interested in terms of employers. So um, the next section of the agenda that I'm going to cover with you before we open this thing up for Q&A, and I'm going to do a few demos of a few cool things for you, uh, is cybersecurity certification prep, right? So the next question is, well, how do I, let's say I chose Security Plus, or I choose, Certified Ethical Hacker. How do I go about preparing for these exams? So um, the first thing I would recommend to you is, as far as resources that I have available for you, if you go to the homepage of webofsecurity.com, you can sign up for that basic membership. It's free, it doesn't cost any money. And take a look at these intro courses, and you'll get a feel for more of the specifics that are actually covered as part of these certifications. So for instance, in the Intro to Security Plus course curriculum, I go over with you the domains that are covered, right? In CISSP, I'll cover you've taken all this into account, and now you want to embark upon the process, right? So let's just say, okay, I've decided Security Plus is right for me. We'll use that as an example. Well, you've walked through the introduction, so there are multiple ways to prepare. There's lots of free resources online. If you want a more structured approach, then I have some options here on webofsecurity.com. For instance, I have a complete boot camp course for both Certified Ethical Hacker and Security Plus. So these are courses that are, roughly 13 to 15 hours worth of content. I've got flashcards. I've got 300 to 400 exam questions on there for you, practice exam questions. And I have hands-on labs. There's about 13 or 14 labs that are included with the Security Plus Boot Camp alone. So this is a good way to prepare yourself. And let me be honest here for a minute with you. I never recommend, whether it's of secure books that you're buying on Amazon, never use just one source to prepare for your exam. Okay, so over the years, I've learned that it's just not a good idea. You should at least have two key sources that you use to prep. So if you decided that you look into one of my courses and that made sense as one of your sources, that's great. But also include someone else's content as well. So look for some reputable content. There's some great books and preparation books on Amazon for CEH and Security Plus Bootcamp. I would say use those together. And that's going to give you the best chance for success. And, as far as the stuff that I'm doing on Web of Security, I have some membership packages, and basically the way I've structured this is I'm trying to set this up so I can interact with folks secure, where this is a webinar. I'm kind of educating you on, here's what these things are. On the study groups, we'll get down, it'll be topical. We'll have study groups for CISSP. We'll have live study groups for Security Plus, for Certified Ethical Hacker. And so the way I'm structuring that is I've got a membership plan and set up for these monthly live study groups, even personal tutoring, and just so I can kind of scale my time, because I've still got a my day job. And that's one of the things I love, by the way. I wouldn't want to just be teaching. Being in the field and doing the work daily is important. And so, I think those things dovetail into one another. But I only have X amount of time, so I'm just trying to manage my time there. And I really do want to help as many people as I can. Through this career process. Some of this stuff is self-paced. As we get a little higher up the food chain, on some of the membership stuff, I can provide more and more access dedicated the years. I know exactly what hiring managers are looking for. You probably have more experience in your background around security than you even realize. You're just probably not articulating that correctly on your resume. So that's something we can certainly talk about. So these are some resources that are available to you for preparation. Before I open up the Q&A completely, I want to show you something cool and some new features that I'm adding to the site. And as I get more of these added, I'm going to do my best to switch as much of this stuff over as I can to free content. So you'll see that more and more of these things over time, there will be more free nuggets that I can open up to basic members. So you can see on the left-hand side of the site, I kind of have what I'm calling like the control panel or the cockpit of the site. Some of this stuff is stuff I'm developing, but the Plan Your Learning Path is very much that cybersecurity skills quiz that we went over. I'm going to be building out a planning and learning tracker. So let's say you decide that CEH is right for you. I'm going to help you map out a study plan, and I'm even plan on building micro. None of us really have time to sit down for 3 hours at a time usually and digest training. And so I'm very much going to be structuring this so you can consume this stuff in small nuggets, small pieces, evaluate yourself and your progress, track your progress, and I'm even going to send you reminders, that you opt into about, hey, here's my course progress. And to that end, what I want to do here is I'm going to log in as a user and show you how this works. So I'm going to log in as a user that's a basic member here. I'm going to log in as Perry here real quick. And so when I log into the site, you'll have a chance to see what he has access to. So let me share that screen real quick. So give that just 1 second to come up. All right, you should see that here shortly. So I've logged in as Perry on the site, and you can see the cockpit on the left-hand side. And so what I want to talk about real quick is the my course progress. So I mentioned that was kind of one of the aspects here. So if I go to my course progress, you can see that, Perry's logged in here. He has multiple courses. Some of these are the free courses that came as part of the basic membership, and others are some of the more premium courses. But what's nice here is that you can track your progress and you can go into the course, pick up right where you left off. So for instance, the Complete Wireless Hacking Bootcamp. And by the way, I do have topical courses, and I didn't mention that, but sometimes folks are not necessarily interested in getting certified in something. Maybe you just want to know more about a topical area. On the site. You're not worried about the certification, but you just want to know more about digital forensics, and you really want to see some hands-on examples. So in the forensics course, I have a ton of hands-on labs and examples that walk you through how you actually do forensics work. The same holds true for incident response, wireless hacking, and even database security, which is an area I haven't really talked about quite yet. But there's a lot of subject matter courses here for those of you that are interested and know that that's an area you want to pursue. But back to this course progress, you can see, you can track that. If I click on complete wireless hacking, I can get a feel for exactly where I am in my modules, right? So I can see that I've completed the advanced wireless introduction, hacking with AirCrack and Reaver, the Wi-Fi Pineapple, Bluetooth low energy hacking. I've completed all those courses, and that's all good. And that's great because it helps you keep track of that. And another thing that I've done on the site is to kind of, keep things interesting and keep you motivated is achievements and ranking and badges. And you can see here that we've got folks that are on the leaderboard. I'm trying to create a community, a security community of folks to interact and to compete a little bit around your hacking skills. And so something else I want to show you here real quick that I think is fantastic. If you don't take any labs for you that like I said, you don't have, these require nothing. So if I click on Instant Hacking Lab, this is a very interesting one. So I'm going to click on that. And what that brings up is a little scenario that this is actually starting a Docker container on the web. Okay, so this is really cool. So I'm going to start this scenario. And what's neat here is that you can see on the right-hand side, I have a command line. I've got a bash terminal. This is actually, in the cloud, you've got a cloud Docker instance that I've provided for you. And, in the instructions, you don't even have to type it out. I've got links here. You can type it out by hand. Let's say I want to start a Docker container, Docker run, follow the instructions. But say I'm lazy, I don't want to type. All you have to do is click here, and it's going to run that for you. Notice what it's doing. It's actually downloading this Docker image, which in this lab, as you'll see as I walk through it, is actually a hacking lab. Okay, and this is all free. You can access it on the site. I'm trying to make as much of this stuff accessible to you as possible, and it's just fantastic. And so what this is doing is downloading these layers. And while that's working, I'm going to continue through the lab here. And basically, I show you what link to click on. And once this comes up and it's all downloaded and ready and available, you can access a live hacking lab uh, on the site. So this takes a few minutes to extract and download. So after about 2 to 3 minutes, this will be completely downloaded. Port 80, and this is actually a dynamic link to your personalized lab in the cloud. And you can do injection attacks you can on the site, and it's all laid out for you. I'm going to put some more structured labs around this, but this is a fantastic resource for you. That still needs to load a little bit, but we'll come back to that in a little bit. So as this loads, I think what I want to do is kind of open up, let's just open up the floor. Let's talk about what you guys are interested in. Looks like we've got about a good amount of folks online. So let's focus on the chat here while this is loading. So what questions, you guys have any questions here so far about what we've talked about, or what you're trying to accomplish, or what you're looking for and what your objectives are? Just go ahead and add anything you got there in the chat so we can kind of talk through it. I said, somebody says, what about, or so CEH equals red teams. Yeah, that's one way to look at it. For sure, you don't have to just limit it to that, but from a job description standpoint, that's exactly true. So going to the chat here, let's see. Looks like I've got some other questions. Can you talk a little bit about the differences in CompTIA Security Plus and CSA Plus? It seems like CSA Plus might be more useful for a blue team member. Yeah, so there are some additional CompTIA security certifications that, the blue team stuff is definitely more incident response oriented. I would say that the CSA is the Cloud Security Analyst, by the way. And so this is where you have to ask yourself where you are in your career, right? So if, let's say, you've got a couple years experience, then maybe the CSA Plus might be good for you. Maybe if you've only got 6 months, a year of experience, Security Plus might make more sense for you in the context of blue teaming, right? Or incident response, if that's a path you wanted to go down. So here's another question. What cert should I take? Well, we kind of talked through about that throughout. Grode Zeus, I that's definitely a self-assessment. I recommend you take that self-assessment exam. It says, I'm quite interested in red teaming, but have very little knowledge. Okay, so I get that. And a lot of people are going to fall in this category, which is, okay, hacking is very interesting to me. I'd like to make a career out of this. How can I go about doing that? Well, you do need to take a methodical approach to this, right? You have to learn some of that basic vernacular. So if you're just getting started, you have very little experience, I highly recommend Security Plus as a first step. I recommend you get a year or two of experience in the field, maybe as part of a security operations center, as a SOC analyst, and then you can start moving more towards CEH. But CEH is not generally something you want to start out directly with, especially if you don't have any networking experience or application security experience. Now, you certainly can. You can try it, but you want to establish a base foundation of knowledge. So that answers that, hopefully. Let's see if we have some more questions here. I'm interested in working in this field. What class should I start with? Yeah. So, okay. It looks like we should be loaded up now. We did a little bit of Q&A. I want to walk through this with you guys. So I'm going to click on the link here. And this is interesting. So say, notice here that we have, this is the lab environment that you'll have. And I'm going to click on Setup and Reset the Database. Okay. And so voila, you have now an OWASP Mutility 2 um, hacking lab, and this is great. So I love this site because you can look here if you want to learn about SQL injection. Um, you know, it's got some examples. It doesn't always tell you exactly how to do this. So, you know, this is where I'm going to start building labs around these things that explain, well, here's what SQL injection is, right? And not only that, here's how you do it. So for instance, in this example, you know, I've got some hints and videos and stuff here that are part of this lab, but you can see how you can take a form and inject information in there and maybe extract data that wasn't intended and hack the database. So really cool stuff. If you want to do cryptographic type hacking, you know, this is free. It's available to you. Hacking SOAP and REST, HTML5. So this is just kind of a glimpse of the type of stuff that I'm including into the site and some of the more advanced packages. So let me go back here. I'm going to go back to the home page on Web of Security. And so I'm going to navigate down. You can see here that I'm building out premium lab packs. Now, this is still in beta. Okay, so it's not quite ready for prime time yet, but I want to show you what this looks like and what this is going to look like. So you saw an example of one of the other types of labs, which is kind of a more command line oriented lab, you know, but it kicked off a web server and desktop. So this is really cool. So I'm logged in as a user that has access to the premium lab pack. And so I'm logged in as Perry, and I'm going to access my Cloud Lab environment right here. So now I clicked over there, and notice you can see that my Cloud Lab environment is being built. And so what it's doing is, in this case, I've got a lab environment that has set up 2 different virtual machines, one that's running Kali Linux, so you get a Kali Linux desktop, and then another one that is running that OWASP image. So you can see this is coming up here. You get a Kali Linux image, and that's firing up. And then I have an OWASP broken web applications image. Or sort of oriented. You know, I have other labs that are specific to, you know, the other types of certifications. But, you know, the more hands-on stuff, as I mentioned before, CEH is a very hands-on experience-oriented certification. CISSP tends to be more theory-oriented, just the nature of that certification. And I'd say that Security Plus is a blend of both. So Security Plus has a little bit more hands-on by virtue of the fact that the certification is looking for and asking for some of those things. So this is still starting up. I'm going to go back to the Kali Linux image here. And you can see I've added the login information for my sample user. So I'm going to log in as root, enter the password of Tor. And so this is going to bring up a Kali Linux desktop, and it's got all the hacking tools preloaded. So you don't have to set this up in your own lab. It's all in the cloud that you want to use it. So fantastic resource for you. Um, and, you know, as this all gets started up here, so it's connecting of Linux. And let me get over here. You can see that if I go into applications on Kali Linux, I've got all kinds of great hacking tools. I can do Maltego scans, and Maltego allows you to do footprinting across social media. If you want to gather information on folks as part of a reconnaissance or penetration testing process. If you want to do vulnerability scans, you know, Kali has tons of tools built into it to do these type of vulnerability scans. If you want to do application hacking, it's got Burp Suite. And all this stuff is open source, right? It's free. So if you want to automate SQL injection attacks, they're great. Database assessment, password attacks. Kali is one of those tools that is invaluable, not only from a training standpoint, but also from the perspective from this in the field. This is, as a penetration tester or a security professional, you're going to want to have Kali Linux in your back pocket. It's a tool you'll use constantly in the space. It even has some forensics tools built into it. So, fantastic there. What's going to be set up is this will be the image, this OWASP Broken Web Apps image that you will be hacking into, and then the Kali Linux image is on the same virtual network, and it is the machine that you will use to do the hacking. So as I mentioned, right now that's in beta. I'm going to be building all this out. I do have plenty of other labs, but I just wanted to give you a sneak peek into some of what's coming up, from that perspective. So let me go ahead and go back to the site. And I know that was a lot of information. We've got a few minutes left in our live webinar here. So for those of you that are on the live chat, let's see if there's some more questions. A plus, okay, there's a question about A plus here. Okay, let me stop the screen share here real quick. Okay, so I'm looking at the chat here. It's a question about A plus consists of 2 exams, 220, 901, 902, one for hardware and networking. Yeah, and I didn't mean to leave out A plus. A plus is important. I think it's somewhat relevant, but I will say this is that in the age of cloud computing, there's less and less work on hardware and servers, right? A lot of that is abstracted. Now, I think A plus is valuable if you're going to be working on desktops and things of that nature. And I think it's good just to get a fundamental understanding of how, computers work. I'm not knocking it. If that's of interest to you, you should certainly look at it, but I wouldn't call A plus as a prerequisite these days to some of these other certifications. If I had to say, well, a good prerequisite, what would that be for Security Plus? I might say, well, Network Plus could be a prerequisite, but I'd say if and only if you didn't have any previous network experience. Okay, so that's just something else to think about. I don't typically focus on some of the non-security oriented certifications, but there are a lot of those out there. A plus and Network Plus are sometimes considered stepping stone certifications to get to things like Security Plus. So definitely something you can think about. So let's look back through some of the questions here again. Do I get a course completion certificate when you finish each module? Yeah, you do. As a matter of fact, and I'm glad you brought that up, built in is that, notice this user here, Perry, that every time they complete a course, they get a link to their certificate. Okay, so here, and this is even the free courses, right? The Intro to Ethical Hacking Bootcamp. So if I click on Intro to Ethical Hacking Bootcamp, you can see that it's going to bring up my personalized certificate for this user, Perry Turnbull, has successfully completed this course, the date. And what I like about this is that you can actually take this and I show you exactly how to add this to your LinkedIn profile. Okay, so if we go back here, let's say you've completed any one of these courses, the free courses or otherwise, and I've got instructions that, and a link here, but let's go through the instructions I explained to you. It's only a few steps on how to add this course completion certificate to your LinkedIn profile. So really, without going over all the steps here, the bottom line is that you're going to paste the link for this for the certification, which is back here. I'll go back over it in a minute, and then you're going to paste it into LinkedIn. So let me show you what I'm talking about here. So let me go back here. And so I'm going to go to Intro to Ethical Hacking Bootcamp. I'm going to choose Copy Link. And now I'm going to go to Add Profile on LinkedIn. Okay. So I'm logged in as me, so it'll probably bring up my LinkedIn profile. And so what you'll want to do is add the certification URL. So what I copied, you just paste that in, and notice it's a hash. It's a value that's specific to your certificate. This is a link just for you. You want to add the S onto this to make sure that you're leveraging the certificate that I have on my site, that in the CA and Certificate Signing Authority. So you know it's valid and original, and it's just specific to you. And if you look up certification authority, if you type Web of Security in here, you'll see that I'm a listed e-learning provider here on LinkedIn. So just choose that. If you want to enter a license number, your license number would actually be this value here at the end of the string. Okay, so you just choose that, Apple C. This is your unique certificate license number, right? And it's a certificate of completion, right? And so this is available to you for any of these courses, and something that I include as part of, um, you know, the site, basically, whether these are the free courses or some of the paid courses. So that's a great question. Let's go back. Let me check the chat a little bit more here. Can you explain Cisco routing for me? Well, here's the story on Cisco routing. So, I am CCNP certified. There's different levels of Cisco certification, CCNA and CCNP. The bottom line is really routing is routing, right? So there are certain standards around the technologies, and Cisco is a flavor of routing technology. They implement uh, some of this technology, but if you learn the standards, for instance, you learn about routing protocols such as OSPF, which stands for Open Shortest Path First, or BGP, which is a Border Gateway Protocol. These are routing protocols where you share route information across these different devices. They're not specific to a particular vendor, meaning that you could use a Juniper router just as well as you could use Cisco or any other vendor. But Cisco is obviously well known; they're well established, and so um, you know if you're wanting to learn about the networking and the routing, maybe a good place to start, honestly, is Network Plus. That gives you a good foundation. And if you want to focus on a network-oriented certification, the CCNA, which is the entry level or kind of the administrative level certification. And sometimes the CCNA can serve as a great foundation to get in and move towards things like Security Plus, CISSP, and Certified Ethical Hacker. So, you got lots of different options to think about there, but it's a good question. I came in late. Will this webinar be available for replay? Yes, it will. I will have this available for replay probably by this afternoon, this evening at the absolute latest, and I will have a link under the webinar schedule available to you that will have a link to the recorded webinar, and then whenever I schedule another webinar, I don't know what the topics of that will be quite yet. That will all be under webinar schedule, so please check that, and you will be able to check out the replay. Okay, it says we are not seeing you on the screen, or we're not seeing your screen. Yeah, I think I'm just sharing video right now, so you should actually be seeing me on the screen right now. Maybe somebody can verify that in the chat, just from a technical logistics standpoint. We are running up on the top of the hour here, so we just have a few minutes left before we shut down our webinar today. So looks like we still have a good deal of people online. I really thank you for joining today. It's great to hear this feedback from everybody. I've run the site now for about 2 years, and it continues to grow. I continue to add more features. And I really love to get feedback from you guys. And I plan on, like I said, having more and more of these webinars. I'm hoping to do it on a weekly basis and cover all kinds of different topics. So maybe a question I can ask here on the chat is, what might you be interested in a follow-up webinar? Is there a particular topic you might be interested in covering? Maybe if I do a webinar in the next 2 to 3. So I'm going to look back at the chat here on my other system. Let's see if anybody's got anything there. I'm just getting into the field, so what package should I start with? Yeah, we kind of covered that a little bit. As a beginner, Harinad asks, and thanks for joining. As a beginner, can I start CEH? Yeah, I mentioned earlier that CEH, really you need to have some level of foundation to get started with. I don't necessarily recommend starting there. I know you're tempted to want to start with CEH, but you have to have some foundational network knowledge. Otherwise, when you get into CEH, it's going to be completely confusing. Um, so you should have some baseline level of security and networking knowledge. And if I had to pin down an equivalent, I would say, something like Network Plus and Security Plus under your belt before you tackle CEH, unless you have quite a bit of work experience in the field. So let me scroll down, see if we had any feedback. Linux operating system and what it's all about. I have no idea about that operating system. Okay, great question. Okay, interested in networking. Very good. Okay, I'm hearing webinar for beginners. I may have intimidated a few of you when I brought up that Linux command line, right? So some folks are a little intimidated by the Linux command line. I've grown to love it over the years as I've been an engineer and an architect because it allows maybe that's a session I can put together. We can talk about the basics of the Linux command line and how you leverage the Linux command line to perform security tasks. So I think that's a good one. I'll certainly take that into account. Thank you very much. Interested in networking? Okay. Yeah, so maybe as part of a follow-up session, we'll talk about the Linux command line. We'll talk about a little bit of networking and just some networking basics, right? And maybe give you some better insight into that foundation and what that foundation looks like at a little bit more of a technical level. Talk about things like the OSI model, talk about TCP/IP, talk about network addressing, IPv4, IP version 6, all those kind of things. It's definitely good ideas for a follow-on webcast. And so we've got just about a minute or two left here before we shut down. Thanks everybody for coming in. Great showing today. Really appreciate it. I hope you have a great week, and I hope this was valuable for you. If it was, send me a note. You can reach me at admin@webofsecurity.com. I'd love to hear from you and hear what we might do as far as webinars moving forward. I appreciate it, and hope you guys have a great rest of the week. Thanks a lot.